first discover that you were gay?
I think looking back, I would say it was around that kind of nursery school type of age.
Okay.
You know, when people have like crushes on girls and stuff.
Yeah.
I had crushes on girls because that was the thing to do, but also boys as well. But because nobody talked about it, I never mentioned it to anyone or even thought about it as something that was weird or extra, that it was just how I felt. But to actually think about it like consciously, to think that, oh, maybe I'm a bit different to everybody else, I'd say that was in year 7, year 6 kind of. So that's what, 10, 11?
Okay,
Yeah, when you're like 10, 11, and that was difficult. So that was that kind of that confusing stage because coming from an African family, Christians as well, that it's just something that's not done. So that was difficult. But in school, all throughout from year 7 to 11, I sang around with girls. I've always naturally been friendly with girls. I wouldn't say that I was a camp person, but everyone used to always like, oh, it's Rufaro, certain things. But then there'd be kids in school who used to get bullied for being gay.
And people didn't really see you.
Like it was like literally the same things that another person would do. If I was to do them, it'd be fine because it's Rufaro. It's just like But if somebody else would get bullied, so
it's interesting.
Yeah, I always think about like how did that happen? Like managed to go through school without getting bullied.
Okay then, so what made you come out?
What made me come out? I guess it was a mixture of not wanting to hide anymore and all this pressure that was on me, because I think when I got to year 10 was when I finally accepted it to myself that this is who I am and these are my feelings. They're never going to change. And I kind of had a series of coming outs as well. So I got a series of coming outs. Because the first time I was browsing the internet back in the dynamic days of that whole noise, and I forgot to delete the browsing history, and I was looking at things I shouldn't have been looking at that age.
At that age, you don't know that you need to delete the history.
Oh, I knew you needed to delete the history. I was a bit of a tech guy. So I grew up with computers. My dad's a computer programmer, so so I forgot to delete. Then my dad called me down, and he's got all these images of the computer that is like, what's this? No, well, obviously it's like dudes doing stuff. Am I supposed to describe to him? So I was so I was just quiet looking at him. He's like, yeah, so is this so? Are you gay then? Are you whatever? Then I was like, no, I just wanted to see what it was because people at school were talking about it, so I was intrigued. So that was number one. A couple of months later, it happened again. I forgot to delete. How did I forget to delete it twice? They called me into his room. He's like, yeah, it's the second time that I've seen it. What is going on? And then I was like, okay, maybe this is my chance to come out. But I was like, to soften the blow, let me say that I'm bi. So I was like, yeah, I think I'm attracted to dudes and whatever. And then he got kind of mad and was shouting like, oh, so you're one of them gays now. Blah, 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 that's not African. I don't want it in my house.
So that's not African?
Yeah, that's not African. I don't want to see it in my house. So stop it or I'm going to send you back to Zimbabwe. That's what it says. Oh, I'm gonna get deported here.
And this is so typical. It's so typical, though. I mean, I'm sure like anyone who's coming from an African background knows this sort of reaction.
Yeah, and then threats. So yeah, I didn't want to go back to Zimbabwe. My whole family's here, so I was like, okay, let me just keep quiet. But he talked to my mum about it, and I'm like, kind of had a conversation with him, like, oh, maybe this is like a phase because you get confused that it's puberty and it's a confusing kind of time. So she was kind of alright in that sense. But then in year 11 is when I decided that I needed to say something. Because I thought this happened again, by the way. I got caught again with
another time, so like 3 strikes.
Yeah, I got caught again. But I'm still here, I didn't get deported. Then, cause I thought they'd know by now. Keep on getting caught visiting gay pornography websites. Then, what else am I thinking? So I thought they'd know now. So talking about adoption, I was saying to him like, yeah, I want to adopt. But I was like, no, I'll say that when we're young that you want to adopt, but you want to have some of your own, don't you? It's like, no, adopt. So that's when it clicked in my head that still in freaking denial that you still don't know. So I was like, okay, I need to have this conversation with my mum. And as you know, I'm a person who likes to research a lot, so I read into lots of people's coming out stories and how to deal with certain scenarios. So I dreaded myself the worst case scenario of being kicked out and being thrown out of the family, but I was like, okay, I need to be true to myself. So I was 16, mum works night shifts, didn't sleep, printed out like helpful guides for our parents dealing with me.
You were really prepared?
Yeah, I was very prepared. It's okay, I've got my printed out thingy, struggling with this, you can take this, and I think I'm being helpful. And then she came back home, ran her bath, and then I was lingering like on the bathroom door, and she's like, yeah, what do you want? Because usually I'm asleep at that time, like while you were awake. And I was like, I've got something I need to talk to you about. And then she's like, okay. And then I was like, yeah, you know when we had that conversation about the adoption? And she's like, yeah, and I was like, well, it's because I'm not attracted to girls. Then she's quiet. And I was like, did you hear that? It's because I'm not attracted to girls. I like
Did you hear
I like boys. Yeah, she wasn't responding. Then she's quiet. I was like, did you hear me? Then she's like, yes, I heard you. What else do you want me to say? And then I was like, oh. So then I left her, went into the living room. Then she took a long bath, And I'm in the living room waiting for it to finish because, nothing was said afterwards.
What did you supposed to do? Like praying?
Goodness knows, I was crying. I was crying. Let me listen to some empowering music. So I'm listening to Diana Ross. I'm coming. I'm bawling. Yes.
Was that what you?
Shirley Bassey. What's that song? This is my life.
Are you serious?
This is my life. Yeah, it's funny now, but then I was like so emotional, crying listening to this.
That's interesting. That is interesting.
So she finishes her bath, then she comes out, then she goes into the kitchen, she's making breakfast. I'm still waiting, like, are you not gonna say anything? And I can't leave things, so I end up asking her again, like, what I said before. And she's like, okay, you're still my son, and I still love you, but I'm not supporting this. So I'm like, okay. And then she went through the whole thing, because she used to work for the HIV and AIDS prevention program in Zimbabwe. So she was worried about that. She started talking to me about AIDS and stuff, which I'd already known because I'd grown up with her working there. So it's like, okay, I'm aware of these things, but I'm as much could catch AIDS having sex with a woman as well. Just use protection. That's what it was. And then, it's a phase. You're not thinking properly, blah, 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 blah. But I just made it clear to her that for me to come to this stage of coming out to you, that, it's not something that's just come overnight, it's been a gradual thing. And then mention the previous times I was caught that this is me telling you who I am. So that was fine. And I told her not to tell my dad, because I wanted to do that after uni, so I thought that would be a bad reaction. What did my mum do? Next day, I spoke to your dad about things. I was like, why? No.
Why?
Because they're not together. So she said to me that my dad said not to come back home at that moment in time, because he might say or do something that he'll regret. So I'm like, oh shite, this isn't gonna be good. So I waited till I got my results for GCSE. So I knew I was gonna do well with my GCSE results. I was like, okay, kind of soften the blow. But good news here for GCSEs, but then I've also got this news. So that's what I did. Went back home with my GCSEs to my dad's. It's like, I did well, A-star here, there. I was like, oh good. Then he works night shifts as well. So next morning I waited for him. Same process again, but different reaction. Like he started quoting the Bible. This is wrong.
Is he quite religious?
No, that was a strange thing. He is not a religious man at all, and
it's like reading off scriptures.
He's not a moralistic person at all. But religion was coming. I was like, oh, this dude knows the Bible. It surprised me. So I was like, okay, but then tried to link it to murder and paedophilia and all that kind of thing. So it went to places that it didn't need to go. But I was adamant that, you know, that as I did with my mum, that this is who I am and this is how, how it is.
Yeah,
and then it concluded with, I don't see you as my child anymore. You're an alien. But I think it was just saying that things then to be hurtful. That's how I felt, because it didn't. With the way that conversation was going, it wasn't an argument or something that was forced. It was just him spewing out these words. Yeah. So I told my mum. I was very, very angry about this. So called in. But to this day, he denies that he said anything of that sort.
Wow. I think you touched on an interesting point actually, because like, it's like in the black community, for some reason, it's one of the worst things you could be, like homosexual. Like, it's okay if you sell drugs. Yes. It's not so bad if you're in a gang.
Exactly.
We accept these things a lot. Especially young people, it's cool. And a lot of parents turn the blind eye to the fact that their son might be selling drugs in the street, you know, sleeping around with all these women and doing these things. But for some reason, to be a homosexual is like the worst thing you could be, and it doesn't make any sense.
I made that point that I was